Hello everyone. As we know that DevOps is the combination of cultural philosophies, practices, and tools that increases an organization's ability to deliver applications and services at high velocity, evolving and improving products at a faster pace than organizations using traditional software development and infrastructure management processes. The Kovair DevOps platform helps organizations automate steps in their software delivery process, such as initiating code builds, running automated tests, and deploying to a staging or production environment. Keeping the primary objectives of improving customer experience, cost optimization, and reduced time to market in mind, the Kovair DevOps platform builds on a combination of pre-integrated, open source, and enterprise IT-grade tools to realize a collaborative IT way of working. In today's demo, we will be demonstrating the end-to-end capabilities that Kovair DevOps platform offers its esteemed customers. Let us consider a scenario where we have an employee portal live on the production server. The application user has encountered a bug where the employee list fails to populate. Through this demo, we will be demonstrating how easily, with the help of automated Kovair DevOps pipeline, organizations can expedite and automate steps in the software delivery process right from code build to deploying the fix to a staging or production environment such as on-premise, public or private cloud, and container cluster. Before we begin the demo, let us talk a little about the Kovair DevOps pipeline. A pipeline can be created from the pipeline list interface, which is also the primary interface of the application. Each pipeline is a combination of several tasks, and each task can be considered as a building block for automating a pipeline. Adding a new task will allow users to configure the partial job with input and output parameters. For better understanding, let us run through a task in detail. Enter a valid name for the task. Since the objective of this task is to retrieve the code from the GitHub repository, we have named the task as Git pull. From the SCM category, select the tool as GitHub plugin v.1.0 and operation as execute command. Upon selecting a tool plugin, the plugin note gets updated automatically with the detailed capabilities of the plugin. Next, we move on to the input parameters. Each plugin exposes certain operations, and for each operation, user needs to provide the required parameters to execute the task. Depending on the operation, the input parameters are auto-populated. The mandatory field in the input parameters section is the command field. Now, let us move to the output parameter section. Output parameters are optional items which you may configure in order to get the output of your operation. In our scenario, we have added GitHub status as the output parameter to retrieve the status of the execute command operation. Pre- and post conditions are optional fields and should be set only if required. For our demo, we will be skipping this part for now. The next field, execution host, is responsible for defining the agent address where users need to execute the specific task. Each agent service contains one configuration.ini file, where users need to mention the application URL and credential. Make your selection from the available options in the drop-down list. If you configure email notification for a user or a group, an email containing the task execution result will be sent to the configured recipients. Finally, the Proceed if failed option gives users a choice of skipping the failed status of a task. If the option is checked, the failed status of a task will be ignored by the agent, and the execution will proceed to the next task. On the other hand, if the option is unchecked, the execution will fail as soon as any of the task fails to execute. If the last task of the pipeline is set to proceed if failed, then it will have no effect until one or more tasks precedes it. Kovair also supports custom command plugin. If a Kovair tool plugin is not readily available, a user also has the flexibility of using custom command plugin, which can execute any command using the command prompt. For our demo, we have already created a pipeline having two parallel tasks. The first task shows how the code change, after passing through all the phases of SDLC, can be successfully deployed onto the AWS production server. The second task outlines the successful deployment onto a container cluster like Kubernetes. Once the developer commits the code fix into GitHub, the Kovair DevOps pipeline can be initiated. Now, let us run the pipeline manually and quickly navigate to the console to monitor the execution progress. The first two steps show how the pipeline pulls the updated code from GitHub and performs a build using Maven. Now if we click on the Git pull task, we can view the details of the task like the repository from where the code was pulled. The Maven build task shows the complete build log. The successful execution of each task can be determined by the green tick mark icon that appears adjacent to it. Once the build is successfully completed, the pipeline will automatically deploy the build on the staging server. Next, an automated Slack notification is sent out to the stakeholders updating the live status. As we can see, the Slack notification has delivered the success message. Upon successful build, automated test scripts are executed using Selenium. Now if we click on the testing task, we can see that the task has successfully executed. The final phase of the pipeline execution requires a manual approval to finally upload the code build onto the AWS production server through S3 bucket. As you know, S3 is a storage service from Amazon Web Services. A manual approval process is quite simple, where the user receives an automated email from the application, providing him with the details of the pipeline. All he needs to do is reply to the same email after replacing the subject with the content of the previously received email. As we can see, I have already received an automated email from the application. I need to copy the content of the email, paste it as the subject line, and reply to the same email. Now if we go back to the console, we can see that the manual approval task has passed. This step adds an extra security layer before a deployment is done on the production server. A user can easily execute this step even if he or she does not have access to a computer when the pipeline execution is in progress, provided the user has his email configured on his cell phone or tablet. After the manual approval, the patch is finally deployed to the AWS production server and also to the Kubernetes cluster through a Docker container. As we have mentioned earlier, there are two parallel tasks that need to be executed in order to achieve the production deployment on both the environments. The first task highlights how we can deploy the code build to the AWS production server with the help of S3 buckets. Let us log into the production application hosted on AWS to verify whether the code change is reflecting and if the application bug has been fixed. As we can see, the employee list is getting populated, which implies that the pipeline has successfully executed. We will also verify the same on our Kubernetes cluster. Before that, let us discuss the associated steps to achieve the scenario. First, we will be creating Docker container with the latest patch. Next, we will be pushing the Docker image to the container registry. Once the Docker image is pushed to the container registry, the existing deployment will be deleted from the Kubernetes cluster. Finally, after the new patch is successfully deployed to the Kubernetes cluster, the deployment service details are exposed, which includes a port number. This port is used to access the application on the Kubernetes cluster. Let us use the exposed port to verify whether the code change is reflecting on the Kubernetes cluster and if the application bug has been fixed. As we can see, the employee list is getting populated, which implies that the pipeline task has successfully executed. Finally, after a successful deployment to both the AWS production server and Kubernetes cluster, another Slack notification will be sent out to the stakeholders informing them about the deployment status. Kovair DevOps platform also provides Yml support. The in-product editor extends support to conveniently edit and update the YAML code of your existing pipeline. In addition, you may also import your own YAML file to create a new pipeline. Next, let us move to release calendars. It is a snapshot view of all releases through a calendar. Using this calendar, users can get a clear picture of a release. They can track when a release was planned and when it actually started. Release calendar contains month, day, and week views. By default, you will see monthly view of the current month. By clicking any release, a pop-up will show the basic details of the release. In order to view completed releases, you need to click the Show Completed checkbox. Orange color bar indicates completed releases, and green color bar indicates in progress releases. You may also choose desired projects from the Projects drop-down list to view the associated releases. This icon lets you toggle between the previous and the next month. The final component of today's demo is the Kovair DevOps dashboard. Kovair DevOps dashboard helps aggregate metrics from multiple tools to create a monitoring interface for software development teams. It tracks metrics including overall pipeline summary, overall run summary, overall execution duration summary, and more. The overall pipeline summary highlights data for all the active pipelines in the application. It gives through insight on the ratio of pipelines that have passed, failed, are in queue, or in running state. The overall run summary provides similar data for pipelines that are in completed state. Kovair DevOps platform also provides a detailed pipeline-based metrics including run summary, duration for last 10 runs, and other important projections. You can get important details like the user who ran the pipeline, the status of the run, the start time, and the duration of the run. In case you want to view the detail of a particular run, you may do so by clicking on the console icon corresponding to each run. With this, we end our demo on Kovair DevOps pipeline. Thank you for watching the demo. Please feel free to get in touch with us for any further clarification.